West Ham had not won a game at home in the Premier League since February. Enter Newcastle United. But this wasn't just a defeat. This was the worst Newcastle performance under Eddie Howe. I'll be analysing exactly what went wrong, including why Newcastle was so bad in possession, the problem with our defensive setup that is causing issues game after game, and how Newcastle's away form is threatening to collapse the season. But we'll start off with Newcastle's issues on the ball in what was their worst technical performance under Eddie Howe. Before I speak about the tactics or the individual player mistakes, I have to highlight this was a team collapse. There was no energy, no intensity, no sharpness to our play, no link between any of the players to get it from back to front. There was nothing of any note that was threatening about our performance. And that comes down to Eddie Howe and the players equally. Eddie Howe should have set up the team better from the start of the game, but with what he set up, you can't imagine some of the technical errors that were made in this game. Here's Anthony Gordon with all the time and space in the world to make a decision on what he does next. Fair play to him, he doesn't have many options on the ball, which is a big problem for Newcastle throughout the game. But the amount of time and space that he has, you expect something better than this to happen. Wan-Bissaka presses from around 10 yards away, manages to track Gordon's movement inside and makes a tackle on the ball. And this is with Newcastle 1-0 up. You have Bowen breaking with the ball already. Next example, Dan Burn on the ball, time and space. Bowen, slight pressure on the ball, nothing really intense. No player in any threat of intercepting this ball or blocking this ball. Straight out play. Simple ball out to Anthony Gordon. Just absolutely no chance this should happen in any professional game. So many technical errors. And if you think that tactically we didn't have enough options on the ball, you're right. And Eddie Howe tried to fix this by going exclusively into a double pivot, with Bruno and Tonali helping that build out from the back. And it didn't work. Here's Tonali about to receive the ball from Botman. You can see what West Ham are trying to do. They had a very narrow shape in our build-up, trying to force us into those central areas if we risked it, and trying to pounce on the ball if we made an error. And in this situation, you want Tonali to retain the ball. He takes a touch, second touch, and already he's under pressure from Potts. Potts wins the ball, and then Bowen's there on the counter-attack again. This isn't the only example. This time, the double pivot works. Bruno plays a lovely little outside of the boot pass in between that midfield and attacking line of West Ham. Tonali makes a lovely movement into that space to receive the ball. Lovely little link up between Murphy, Tonali and Bruno, but you can see where I'm going with this. Bruno Guimaraes receives this ball, simple pass out to Kraft, just making an option down the outside, straight out play. I can't tell you how many times when I was making notes during this game, this happened. Simple passes, just not executed to any real standard. But although the players showed a poor level of technical ability throughout the whole game, tactically, Eddie Howe was getting it wrong with his shape, his personnel in that shape, and the substitutions that came on. Now, after a terrible first half, we made 3 substitutions, but even with those substitutions, we still ended up in situations with Joelinton at left wing and Dan Burn in the left half space. There is absolutely no attacking threat coming down that side, especially when we needed a goal. I can't understand why we continue to play Joelinton in those wider areas, and he changed it 5 to 10 minutes later. Now, we all know that Dan Burn isn't a left back. We all know this now. He's a good centre back. He knows his strengths in the team, and using him in the left half space is a total waste of time. It's like playing with 10 men when we're on the ball. So instead of bringing on Fabian Schär, he could have left Dan Burn at left back when we're off the ball. And on the ball, he could have pushed him into a left centre back role in a free with Botman and Malik Chow. Push Jacob Murphy up into that right wing back role, had an extra attacking player on the pitch with Jacob Ramsey, Asula, and potentially Harvey Barnes instead of Fabian Schär coming on, and we would have been in a far better attacking position to attack the second half. And even later on in the second half, he took off Botman, took off Jacob Murphy, and had Tonali at right back and kept Joelinton on the pitch. When we needed that extra little finesse, quality against West Ham's deep block, we kept Joelinton in those higher attacking areas. And I have to bring up our recruitment at this point. We've made some really good signings over the past few seasons, but Eddie Howe favours the physicality over the technical ability. The physicality comes first to be able to deal with the Premier League, which I understand makes sense, but we have to start looking for some technical players. Players that are comfortable in tight spaces. Players that are comfortable unlocking deep blocks. Maybe a right winger instead of a Langer that can cut in on their left foot and create from those wide positions. Link play with Bruno Guimaraes in that right half space role. Now we have to look at addressing this over the next few transfer windows, but in the meantime, we have to find a solution. Potentially a 4-4-2 with Voltemada ahead of Bruno and Tonali, linking play from back to front. Wissa, when he's fit, stretching the play and making those runs in behind, similar to what Osula did in that second half, but he didn't have the technical ability to really make it work when he received the ball. Potentially Jacob Ramsey in that left wing position, left midfield position, cutting in like he did with Aston Villa, playing in that left half space and linking play with Lewis Hall, overlapping down that left hand side. We need something different. Something different against these deep blocks to really make it count, especially away from home. But the problems weren't only on the ball. How do we let West Ham, a team that's low on confidence, especially at home, play through us so easily? This mid-block, this flat mid-block is causing issues. Here's West Ham. We're set up in that 4 at the back with the 5 ahead of them, and the teams that we play against have worked us out. They're getting into these little half-space positions so easily, turning and attacking our back line. And West Ham did it against us again yesterday, especially with Somerville and Bowen in those left and right half spaces. Paqueta receives the ball, and you can see the amount of space that Somerville has to receive. Kraft makes a mistake by going out to the left back in Juve, and he doesn't really stick to his position and allow the ball to go out wide. And this causes all kinds of problems with Somerville turning, and he wins a free kick from Bruno, who has to foul on the edge of the box. And this issue reared its ugly head again for West Ham's second goal. You can see them progressing with the ball in midfield, Jared Bowen in that right half space. One player standing still shouldn't cause this much problems when we have time and space to deal with the problem. As Fernandes carries this ball forward, Gordon is the man initially screening this ball into Jared Bowen. Dan Burn here shouldn't get this attracted to the ball. He should go half and half, ready to track the run of Wan-Bissaka or go towards Bowen if there's really an issue. But you can already see Jolinton going across the screen the ball into Bowen's feet. Burn shouldn't really be caught this high out of possession. And then the rest is history. Simple cross from Wan-Bissaka. Botman doesn't quite get into the right position, makes a last-ditch clearance, and the ball goes into our own net. And it's just a catalogue of errors that starts with this flat mid-block that doesn't know how to screen passes effectively to the player in the right and left half space. And the most frustrating thing about this tactic is when we went 1-0 up, we should have went for the game. West Ham had the worst defence of any team in the Premier League before this game, one of the worst home forms in the Premier League as well, and instead we went and sat off in a mid-block, allowed them comfortable possession, and they managed to gain momentum in that first half. That led to the first goal and the second goal, and then when they were ahead, they just were so comfortable dropping into a deep block, and this all could have been avoided if we maintained that intensity. They tried to avoid that high press by going long, but we were losing the first and second balls as well. Total lack of intensity, energy, and anything about us to get amongst West Ham and really get them unsettled with the low confidence they brought into this game. And that second goal was key. And unfortunately, it was a technical error with his shot stopping from Nick Pope. You can see Paqueta about to take a strike from the edge of the box. Nick Pope's view is slightly obstructed, but he can see Paqueta and Bruno on the edge of the box. And the key technical error is with his right foot. It's so small and so subtle, but if you miss it, you would think that this is just a good strike from Paqueta and Nick Pope couldn't have done any more. As he takes that right-footed step, he actually collapses his right side, and that prevents him from getting any sort of momentum and push off from that right foot once he realizes where the line of flight of this ball is going. But even with this error and the lack of momentum, you can see how bent his arm is as that ball is so close to goal. He should be extending his arms out quicker, and that's what prevents him getting solid contact on the ball and pushing it wide. And it's a poor error from Nick Pope in an area of his game that's keeping Aaron Ramsdale out of this team. Now, Aaron Ramsdale couldn't have prevented what happened in this game. We didn't have a problem against a high press where he could have come into it with his ball playing ability, but I want to see if he can be our number one. In other games this season, we're going to need to play out from the back, develop our in-possession game, because we're struggling on the ball at this moment in time. I know what Nick Pope can do. I don't know what Aaron Ramsdale can do with a run of games. So this is something I would like to see. I think you have to make these harsh decisions at this point in the season. If you think this is reactionary, I'll link a tweet or put a tweet up here that I put before the season started about a transformative change that we could make midway through the season that would transform how we play. And I mentioned Aaron Ramsdale being brought in to develop that in possession game, and I think now's the time to make that change. And this wasn't just one bad day, this was a part of a bigger pattern. Newcastle's away form is reaching alarming levels. That's now 8 games winless away from home in a row. We've only picked up 3 points from the last 5 games this season, and the last time we won away from home was against a poor Leicester team back in April. And I don't believe the issue is with our defensive setup. We've kept 3 clean sheets and looked fairly solid away from home, but only 2 goals scored in 5 away games. We've looked pretty toothless from an attacking perspective. And the problem is the consistency, because before this 8-game winless run away from home, we had beaten Man United away, Spurs away, Nottingham Forest away, even Arsenal away in the EFL Cup. This was the worst Newcastle performance I've ever seen under Eddie Howe. Big changes are needed, both in terms of our personnel and the tactical approach in certain games. Certain starters are getting comfortable knowing they're going to be picked for the majority of our games. Anthony Gordon has been underperforming for a while in the Premier League. Play him in the Champions League games. Play Anthony Elanga, Barnes, Ramsey, any one of those players in the left wing position. Speaking of Ramsey, Joelinton hasn't been performing. We need someone more technical in our midfield now. We need to develop our in-possession game, especially against low blocks. Give Jacob Ramsey a run in the team. Aaron Ramsdale I've already mentioned. Nick Pope has been a great servant. He's performed well this season, especially in shot stopping. But I need to see how our in-possession game develops with Ramsdale in goal. Can he be our number 1 keeper for the future? And things need to improve quickly. By December, we could be out of the race for the European places. Sunderland have started great. Bournemouth has started great. Crystal Palace are a form team. These are teams that we aren't even competing with. The likes of the top 6 clubs are still in that top half, even though they aren't hitting the top stride yet. By December, we need to fix these issues. We need to build a run of momentum to really keep in the hunt for these European places. Out of all the mess of that game, there was one player that still played a half-decent performance. That was Malik Chow. Check out my breakdown on him before the season started. And if you like this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button.